Hello everyone, this is Yana Smakula, member of Spellbinders design team. In this video I'm going to show you how to create an elegant fall card using Spellbinders Nestabilities dies. We're going to do a little bit of letterpressing, some die cutting and embossing using Labels 49 and Labels 49 Decorative Accents dies. We are also going to use A2 Scalloped Borders 1 and 5x7 Metting Basics B dies from Spellbinders. I've already prepped the dies that I want to use for this card along with the pattern papers on my work surface. This is how I always like to start when I'm working on my dies. Even though I'm using papers from a 6x6 paper pad, I can still use them to create a 5x7 card. I'm going to begin by die cutting a panel using die number 7, the largest die from the 5x7 Metting Basics B set, out of this brown chevron wood grain paper, and also an identical panel out of white wood grain paper. I'm taping my die down to my paper to make sure it stays in place and cuts where I've placed it. I'm using Spellbinders Platinum die cutting and embossing machine today, and I'm first cutting the dark wood grain paper. Next, I'm using a die from the A2 Scalloped Borders 1 set and adding a beautiful scalloped border to the bottom part of this panel. Now please note, I am not embossing anything at this time, I'm just cutting. So just like I cut the first panel, I'm going to cut the second one out of white wood grain paper. And as soon as I have both of them ready, I'll assemble the two pieces together. I need to use my die as a guide, so I'm placing my light wood grain panel inside the die, and I'm using my tape runner, adding adhesive to the top and middle part of my bottom panel to be able to adhere the top panel on top. Now I'm avoiding adding adhesive to the edges of my paper, as I will be adding some stitching using my sewing machine, and it's best not to have any adhesive where your stitching is going to be, not to damage your sewing machine. Next, I can place the top panel onto the bottom one, adhere the two together, and then use my die to add embossing to this piece. You can see I've first used the die as a guide so that I would know where to adhere the second panel and not make this piece too tall. I've added zigzag stitching to this element using my sewing machine, and now I'm lifting the scalloped edge of the top panel to add some dimension to this project. Now let's do some letterpressing. I love that I'm able to do all sorts of things with my Spellbinders dies. So here's the die that I'll be using to letterpress a beautiful panel. This is the largest die from the Labels 49 Decorative Accents set. Notice how the oak leaves and the top of the acorns are raised. Well, you can use those areas to add ink and to letterpress. So I'm going to use chalk ink and ink up my die. Different types of ink perform differently. Some work better for letterpress, others not so much. I have found I like chalk and pigment inks best for letterpressing with my dies. If you're not getting the result you're happy with, you might want to play a little bit with different types of inks. Now when you're inking your die, make sure not to press too hard or you will end up having ink where you don't want it. Simply lightly tap to ink up your die. Now if you find you have too much ink on your die, use a Q-tip to wipe the die clean. Once you have your ink applied, carefully place the die onto the paper, and once it's on the paper, make sure not to move it. It's just like when stamping. If your stamp touches your paper, you do not want to shift it or you will have a smeared impression. So use a piece of low-tech tape like washi tape and tape your die down to your paper. Next, send the die through the machine and cut the element out. While cutting, the pressure in the machine will force the ink on the die to move onto your paper and will also letterpress this piece. After you've cut the die out, you can also go ahead and emboss it if you like. If you have trouble getting the die cut out of the die, use Spellbinders Tool-in-One to help you with that. And there it is, a beautiful die cut and letterpressed piece. Now we will also need to cut a few additional pieces to finish our card. I've already cut a beautiful label out of gold mirror cardstock using a die from the Labels 49 set. And now I'm using a die from the Labels 49 Decorative Accents set and cutting a thin outline and also a decorative piece to use on my project. I'm going to remove the outline and emboss the decorative piece to make it more beautiful. I've also created another element for my card using Labels 49 Decorative Accents smallest die. I've cut it out of chocolate brown cardstock and also embossed it. This piece can also be used to letterpress. I'm going to use gold pigment ink to show you the letterpressing just one more time. I've already attached my die to a piece of washi tape and I'm inking it using gold pigment ink. Next, using the tape as a handle and placing the die onto brown cardstock. All you have to do now is cut and emboss. And there is your beautiful letterpressed piece. Now let's go ahead and put this card together. First, I'm going to tie a bow using dark chocolate satin ribbon. It's going to match beautifully to the brown cardstock that I'm using for the rest of the card. Use some foam adhesive squares to adhere the main letterpressed panel onto the background piece. I'm using foam adhesive as I always like to add dimension to my projects. So adhere that piece and add a brown piece cut using Labels 49 die and Labels 49 decorative accent die on top. Now you don't have to cut the opening in the center. I just happened to have it as I was playing with my dies and experimenting with letterpress. The opening is not going to be visible on the finished card. Next, use glue to adhere the thin frame cut out of gold cardstock. I've put a large clear block on top to press down and make sure this piece would adhere nicely, so that I don't have to hold it all the time. I've also adhered the gold die cut, again using foam adhesive, and now I'm adding the final piece on top. You can see I've added a puffy sentiment sticker to finish this card, and the sentiment says, "Loving you." I'm also adding a little puffy sticker heart to continue the love theme on this project. Lastly, I've adhered my panel onto a chocolate card base and I'm adding one final touch, a piece of washi tape with an additional Dream Big sentiment. So there you have it, an elegant fall card created using Spellbinders, Nestabilities dies and letterpress. We hope you've enjoyed watching this video and feel inspired to create. Be sure to come back and watch other videos on our channel for more ideas. If you have any questions about this project, please leave them in the comments section below. And be sure to subscribe to Spellbinders YouTube channel for more education and inspiration. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!